The text was already sent. Aurora Vale blinked at her screen, frozen in horror as the message status turned from sending to delivered. It glared back at her like a curse. A flirty, late-night mirror selfie, meant for her best friend's older brother, now sat in the inbox of a total stranger. She zoomed in with shaking fingers. The cropped tank top, the smirk she'd practiced too many times in the diner's bathroom mirror. The caption, "Should I actually send this? Be honest." Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Oh no. No, no, no," louder each time, her stomach plunging like a dropped tray of mugs. She tapped the contact. Unknown. No photo. No memory of adding them. Only the initials. K. Draven. But let's rewind, because 30 minutes earlier, Aurora was just another overworked waitress at Luna's diner on the edge of Silver Ridge Forest. Still in uniform, smelling like espresso and smoke, nursing a broken phone screen and a broken sense of self-worth. Her ex had just posted a pic. Him and his co-worker, the same one he'd sworn he wasn't sleeping with. Aurora sat curled up in her tiny apartment, balancing a bowl of mac and cheese and her dignity. Her younger brother Eli was asleep in the next room. She was scrolling, spiraling, and when her best friend dared her to remind the universe you're hot, she didn't expect to actually follow through. She'd meant to feel empowered, not accidentally ping a complete stranger who would reply 5 minutes later with just 4 words, "You are not ready." And that was the moment fate and the full moon began to turn. If you are ready for what's coming next, smash the subscribe button and comment where you are watching from. Now, back to the story. The message sat there like it had weight, pressing down on her screen. 4 words, simple, direct, unsettling. You are not ready. Aurora stared at it longer than she wanted to admit. Her thumb hovered above the delete button, then moved to the info icon. No photo, no name, just K. Draven, a contact she didn't remember saving. The number wasn't local, but there was something about the name old-fashioned, formal, like it belonged in a dusty leather book about warlords or cult leaders, or someone who didn't joke. She locked her phone and tossed it across the bed, hard enough to bounce once and thump onto the floor. Her heart still hadn't slowed. It had to be a prank. Probably her best friend Dahlia, screwing with her. Or worse, maybe it really had gone to her best friend's brother, and he was trying to play mysterious. Gross. Aurora scrubbed her hands over her face. God, I need to stop texting when I'm half asleep and half whine. Outside her window, the wind picked up, rattling the frame. It was late, closer to morning than midnight, and the forest that stretched behind the apartment complex looked darker than usual. Silver Ridge always did that. Sometimes the trees felt like they leaned a little closer at night. She closed the curtains. Her phone vibrated again. A single text. Sleep, Aurora. The moon watches. She froze. Her name. They used her name. She snatched the phone off the floor, pulse racing, but no other messages came. No explanation, no follow-up, just silence. Dahlia, if this is you, I swear, she muttered, tapping out a response. Who is this? How do you know my name? Delivered. Read. No reply. She sat in bed for another hour, wide awake, watching the screen like it might explode. Eventually, exhaustion won. She pulled the covers over her head like a kid hiding from monsters and drifted into a restless sleep. She dreamed of eyes, silver, luminous, watching from between trees. She stood barefoot in the woods, wearing the same clothes she'd worn to work. Coffee-stained apron, her pen still clipped to the neckline. The wind howled. Something growled low in the dark, and then came footsteps behind her, steady and deliberate. When she turned, she saw a man at the edge of the clearing, tall, broad-shouldered, half in shadow, his face obscured, but his eyes, those she could see, pale and glowing like polished silver coins. He spoke without opening his mouth. Not a voice, but a thought. You sent the signal. Now you must choose. Aurora woke gasping. The light outside had shifted. Early morning. Her head pounded. Her sheets were tangled around her legs like she'd been fighting them in her sleep. The phone sat silent on her nightstand, screen blank. No new messages, nothing but that same thread. You are not ready. Sleep, Aurora. The moon watches. She didn't respond again. By the time she got to Luna's diner for her morning shift, the whole thing felt like a fever dream. Dahlia hadn't mentioned anything weird. Eli was still asleep when she left, and no mystery stalker had shown up to steal her soul. She slipped into her apron, tied her hair into a loose bun, and reminded herself it was just a text. A text. That's it. The morning rush at Luna's was brutal, the kind that made her forget she hadn't slept or eaten. There were screaming toddlers, spilled coffee, and Mr. Griggs, the regular who always insisted on calling her Anna for some reason, complaining about the toast like it was a national crisis. She kept busy, head down, moving on instinct. It wasn't until late afternoon, when the rush had thinned, that she noticed it, a shape just beyond the window, still. Watching. She blinked. It was gone. Then it was there again. Closer this time. Between the trees, just across the old parking lot that bordered the forest. Not a man. No, a wolf. Huge. Unnatural. Its coat was pitch black, like it absorbed the light around it. Aurora's breath caught. The world narrowed. She stepped closer to the glass. It was still. Too still. Eyes locked on hers. She backed away, grabbed her phone. By the time she looked again, the clearing was empty. What the hell? She whispered. She didn't tell anyone. Not her manager. Not Dahlia. Not even Eli when she got home and found him camped in front of the TV eating cereal out of a mixing bowl. Instead, she spent the night triple-checking her locks, pacing her apartment, and eventually giving up on sleep entirely. When the clock hit 3:33 a.m., the texts came back. Don't go into the forest. They smell you now. Her blood went cold. She tried to call the number, heart racing, but it rang twice and dropped. No voicemail, no tone, nothing. She threw the phone onto the couch and stood there in the dark living room, arms crossed tight over her chest. She was done playing along. Done being creeped out by some cryptic wannabe cult leader with a flair for drama. The next morning, she deleted the thread, blocked the number, burned sage, not because she believed in any of it, but because she needed to believe she could control something. She kept her head down at work, didn't talk much, didn't look toward the forest, and yet, every night, just past midnight, something scratched at the edge of her mind, like a memory she didn't know she had, like eyes that didn't blink. The forest wasn't forgetting, and neither was the moon, because she'd sent the photo. She'd opened the door, and something on the other side was already stepping through. The dreams didn't stop. Every night, like clockwork, Aurora fell into them, the forest again. Same clearing, same moon hanging low and swollen above the tree line like it was watching her breathe. Always barefoot, always cold. Sometimes she heard her name whispered on the wind. Other times it was louder, like someone speaking right into her ear. And then there were the eyes. Silver, not just bright, but glowing. Human, almost. Intelligent. Patient. She never saw more than the eyes and a shadow behind them, always just beyond reach. Never close enough to speak, never far enough to forget. She stopped sleeping fully. Her body would crash for 2, maybe 3 hours a night before jolting awake, heart pounding, fingers clenched in the sheets. The dreams clung to her like damp clothes, heavy and uncomfortable. And every time she blinked in the dark, she expected to see those eyes. The diner didn't help. Luna's sat at the edge of Silveridge Forest, where the trees were thick and old, and the lights from town never quite reached. It had always given her a weird feeling, even before the texts, but lately that feeling had teeth. Twice that week, she caught glimpses of something outside during her shift. Not a shadow, not her imagination. Something. Tuesday night, she was refilling sugar dispensers when she saw it again, just across the parking lot, near the tree line. Large, low to the ground, moving too smoothly to be human. She stepped closer to the window. It didn't move. A wolf, not a coyote, not a stray dog, a massive black wolf, built like a nightmare, muscle, power, and purpose. Its eyes glinted, and the moment she locked eyes with it, she forgot how to breathe. She didn't scream, didn't run, just stood there, frozen, heart hammering in her chest like it was trying to warn her. It didn't snarl, it didn't charge, it just watched. Then it blinked and vanished into the trees. Aurora gasped, staggering back from the window. Her co-worker, Ray, glanced up from behind the counter. "You good?" he asked, voice half distracted, half bored. She nodded too fast. "Yeah, thought I saw—" "Never mind." He didn't press. Nobody ever did. By the time she clocked out at midnight, the parking lot was empty, but she still walked fast, keys jammed between her fingers like claws. The back of her neck itched the whole way home. That night, the dream was worse. She was running through the woods. No shoes, trees whipping past, the moonlight too bright. Something was chasing her, or maybe calling her. She couldn't tell. The air was thick with mist and the scent of pine. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but she couldn't stop. Then, just like every time, she reached the clearing. And he was there. This time, she could see more than eyes. A man, tall, barefoot, shirtless, muscles like stone under moonlight, covered in black tattoos that shimmered like they were inked in silver. His skin seemed to glow, not with warmth, but with something ancient. Power curled off him in invisible waves. His hair was black, just like the wolf. His face, beautiful and terrifying, looked like it belonged in a temple, not in a forest, like he'd been carved by gods who didn't understand mercy. The silver eyes weren't glowing now. They were locked on her, alive, wild, possessive. He took a step forward. She tried to move, but her body wouldn't listen. He reached for her, hand outstretched. "Aurora," he said, and his voice, deep, commanding, wrapped around her like smoke. She gasped awake. Sweat soaked through her shirt. Her sheets were tangled. Her legs ached like she'd actually been running. She turned on the lamp and checked the time. 4:08 a.m. Her heart hadn't slowed. She stood, walked to the kitchen, and poured herself a glass of water with shaking hands. Then, without knowing why, she walked to her window and pulled back the curtain. There it was again. The wolf, standing in the grass just outside the complex fence. Same place, same eyes. It didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. Her breath fogged the glass. She didn't dare move. Couldn't. Then slowly it turned and walked back into the trees, silent as shadow. The next day she couldn't focus. At the diner, she poured orange juice into a coffee mug, took orders and forgot them mid-sentence. Customers asked her if she was okay, and she lied every time. "You look haunted," Ray said during a lull. She shrugged. "Just not sleeping. You, me, and the rest of the working class." She wanted to laugh, but didn't. Not when the eyes were still behind her own every time she blinked. She didn't tell Eli, didn't want to scare him. Besides, what would she even say? That she was being haunted by dream wolves and forest spirits? That she kept seeing silver eyes in her sleep and in the woods, and that they belonged to a man who felt more real than most people she knew? No, Eli didn't need that. He needed her to keep the rent paid, to keep food on the table, to not lose her mind. So she kept working, kept pretending. But every night, the dreams dragged her back. Every night, the clearing, the moon, the man, and the voice. One night, she dared to speak. "Who are you?" He looked at her then, really looked, like he'd been waiting for the question. You know, he said. She shook her head. I don't. You will. She stepped back, heart stuttering. This is just a dream. His eyes narrowed. Then why does your blood remember? She woke up with a gasp and blood on her palm from clutching her own hand too tight. That day she found claw marks on the diner's back door. 3 deep grooves in the metal. No one else seemed to notice, or maybe they just didn't want to. She stood there long after her shift ended, staring at them, her breath frosted in the air, though the forecast hadn't called for cold. That night, she didn't sleep. The forest didn't forget, and something was getting closer. It started like any other slow Thursday night. The dinner rush had come and gone, leaving Luna's diner soaked in the faint scent of fried food and cheap cologne. Aurora wiped down the counter with tired hands, working through muscle memory more than conscious thought. Outside, the forest pressed in darker than usual. It was moonless tonight, though the street lamp by the parking lot buzzed like it was struggling to stay awake. The booths were empty except for a couple of regulars at the far end arguing over sports scores and drinking decaf like it was whiskey. She tried not to look at the window, tried not to think about silver eyes or claw marks or the pressure in her chest that had settled there like it had moved in permanently. Ray had left early with a stomach bug, so Aurora was closing solo. Just her, the mop bucket, and the hush of a building that always felt a little too quiet after midnight. She checked the time. 12:12 a.m. The bell over the door rang. She glanced up, expecting some half-drunk local stumbling in for coffee or a cop looking for a midnight refill. But the man who stepped through the door wasn't from Silveridge. No chance in hell. Tall, broad-shouldered, all black everything, jeans, boots, jacket. His hair was dark, thick, and pushed back in a way that looked almost careless. But his eyes... they weren't silver like in her dreams, not glowing, not animal, but dark, so dark they felt endless. Still, something in her stomach dropped the moment they met hers. He stood in the doorway for a beat too long, not like he was unsure, more like he was memorizing the space. Her. Aurora blinked. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice tighter than she intended. He walked toward the counter, slow and sure, like he owned gravity, like the air had to make room for him. "Coffee?" he said. His voice was low, measured, no accent, but there was weight to it. She nodded. "Sure." Her hands moved before her brain could catch up. Mug, pour, slide, all without looking at him again. He sat on the stool across from her, fingers wrapping around the cup without drinking. His eyes never left her. "You're Aurora," he said. Her spine stiffened. "Do I know you?" A pause, just long enough to make her stomach twist. "No." She forced a breath. "Then maybe don't make it weird." He didn't smile, didn't blink. "You sent the message." Her hands stopped moving. "What?" "The photo, the text. You sent it to me." Every cell in her body went still. The mop handle slipped from her fingers and clattered against the tile. She stared at him. "You're Kay Draven?" This time he nodded. "Kyle." The name hit her like a memory she wasn't supposed to have. Her throat dried. How do you know me?" He leaned forward slightly, and somehow that tiny shift made everything feel closer, denser. "I told you. You called me." "It was a mistake," she said quickly. "I meant to text someone else. I didn't mean anything by it." "You did," he said, calm, certain. "You just don't understand it yet." Her breath stuttered. He didn't move again, didn't raise his voice, but the weight of his presence filled the space like storm clouds rolling in. She felt it in her bones. "You've been watching me," she whispered. "The texts, the dreams, the wolf." He cut her off gently. "I've been protecting you." She took a shaky step back. "From what?" Kyle's jaw tightened just slightly. "From the ones who would rather you didn't exist." I don't even know what that means. You will, he said again. The bond is waking. Faster than I expected. Her hands trembled. What bond? He looked at her then, really looked, like he was peeling her apart without touching her. You still don't feel it. Feel what? Kael stood, slowly. His full height forced her to tilt her head back just to meet his eyes. He stepped around the counter and stopped just close enough to make her breath catch. He smelled like something wild, earth after rain, smoke and pine and cod wind. You already know, he said. You felt it since the moment you hit send. Aurora's heart pounded. She couldn't look away. This isn't real, she whispered. This can't be real. Kael reached out, not to touch her, just hovering, palm open, waiting. Then why are you shaking? She stepped back like she'd been burned. He let his hand fall, didn't chase her. I came to warn you, he said. They're coming. They've caught your scent. The full moon is days away. After that, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. Aurora swallowed the scream building in her throat. What do you want from me? His expression didn't change, but there was something behind his eyes now, something fragile and fierce. Everything. Silence filled the diner, thick and heavy. Then he turned, walked to the door, pushed it open like he'd been here 1,000 times. She stood there, rooted, watching him go. Just before he stepped outside, he looked back once. I'll be near, he said. Don't run. The door closed behind him. Aurora didn't move until the sound of his boots on gravel faded into the dark. Even then, she just stood there, palms sweating, heart racing, trying to make sense of what had just walked through her life. Outside the window, the street lamp flickered once, then died. The moon rose full and bright the following night. A pale coin hung low in the sky. It painted everything in Luna's diner silver, even the dust, even the quiet. Aurora felt it the second it crested the trees. Like pressure behind her ribs, like gravity shifting, her skin itched, not painfully, not even uncomfortably, but in a way that made her glance down at her left shoulder blade more than once during her shift, as if something waited beneath the fabric of her shirt, waiting to be seen or remembered. It was just past midnight when she finally stepped outside for air. The breeze was cold, edged in pine and damp earth. The forest across the lot loomed bigger than before, like it had exhaled and grown. Every instinct told her to stay inside, but she didn't. She walked past the dumpsters, past the edge of the gravel lot, to where the pavement cracked and weeds grew wild. She didn't know what she was waiting for until the air changed. Kael appeared like he was pulled from the darkness itself. One moment she was alone, the next he was there, shadowed and silent and tall enough to make her feel exposed. You feel it now, he said. Aurora didn't pretend to misunderstand. It's been getting worse, she admitted. Since you showed up, since the dream started. It's not getting worse, Kael said. It's waking. She crossed her arms, more for protection than defiance. What's waking? Kael stepped closer, slow, deliberate. The moonlight turned his features into sculpture, sharp and ancient. His eyes weren't silver this time, but the darkness in them shimmered faintly, like there was another color just beneath the surface, waiting for permission to rise. The bond. Aurora shook her head. I don't believe in soulmates. That's convenient, he said, because this has nothing to do with belief. She turned slightly, unsure whether to run or listen, but her body didn't move. Couldn't move, not from fear, but from knowing. Deep down, beneath the noise and the logic and the survival instincts, something in her already understood. He watched her, still and unreadable. I want to show you something, he said. No offense, she muttered, but last time I followed a strange man into the woods in a dream, it didn't go great. This isn't a dream. He extended his hand, and against every ounce of reason, she took it. The forest swallowed them quickly. Trees wrapped around them like ribs, the path ahead lit only by the glow of the moon above. Kyle didn't speak. He didn't need to. The silence between them was thick, but not awkward, more like the moment before thunder. They came to a clearing. She recognized it immediately because she'd seen it before. In dreams, dozens of times. The same gnarled roots, the same worn stones jutting out of the earth like forgotten grave markers, the same circle of trees that leaned in as if listening. "How do I know this place?" "It knows you," he said. "And you knew it once." He moved behind her, careful not to touch. "Take off your jacket." She hesitated. "Why?" "Because the moon wants to see you." It sounded ridiculous, like something out of a story, but her hands moved anyway, slipping the jacket from her shoulders. The cold should have made her shiver. It didn't. The air felt warmer here, alive. The moment her skin was bare to the moonlight, something sparked. It started as heat, centered on the back of her left shoulder, just beneath the blade. Then came the light. Faint at first, a pulse, then brighter. A thin, glowing pattern began to form beneath her skin. Spirals and sharp curves, like runes made of silver fire. Aurora gasped and stumbled forward, but Kyle was there, hands steadying her arms. "It's your mark," he said quietly. "The moon's claim." "I've had that birthmark since I was born," she said, breathless. "It's just a scar, nothing special. Until tonight." She turned to look at him, eyes wide. "What does it mean?" "It means you were never ordinary," he said. "It means your soul remembers what your mind can't." The glow pulsed once more, then faded. The forest seemed to sigh with it. Aurora pulled her jacket back on, skin still buzzing. "This isn't possible," she whispered. Kyle didn't argue. "This bond," she said, voice low. "What does it do?" "It connects us," he said. "It makes us more. Stronger, faster. It links our instincts, our thoughts, even our pain." "And if I don't want it?" Kyle's face didn't change, but something in his shoulders shifted, just slightly. "Then it fades, eventually, if left unclaimed." She swallowed. "Claimed?" He stepped back, giving her space. "There are rules," he said. "Ceremonies, vows. When the bond is accepted, it's sealed under moonlight. It's permanent. And if it's not accepted, then it's unstable. For both of us." Her pulse raced. "You make it sound like it's dangerous." "It is." He walked past her then, looking out over the trees, his silhouette cut clean against the sky like he didn't quite belong to this world. "There's more," he said. "And you need to hear it." She braced herself. "I'm not just a wolf, Aurora. I'm the Alpha King." She blinked. "I thought that was just a name." "It's not." His voice was colder now. "It's a title, a responsibility, one that comes with blood and laws." She didn't like where this was going. "There's a law," he continued, "older than the packs, older than even the moon's blessing. It forbids bonding with a human." The world tilted. Why? Because they fear it. The old ones, the elders. They say a human mate weakens the bloodline, dilutes the gift. They say it invites chaos. "Do you believe that?" Kyle turned to her. "I never did. Until you." She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. "I feel it," he said. "Every time you look at me like I'm something impossible. Every time I dream of you. Every time you tremble and don't run. I'm not afraid of you. You should be." The wind picked up. The trees whispered. Something in the air snapped like a string pulled too tight. "If I accept it," she asked, voice barely above a whisper, "what happens?" "You become mine," he said, quiet but certain, "and I become yours." in every way that matters. And if I don't? His jaw tightened. Then I'll protect you anyway, even if it kills me. The weight of it hung between them, heavy, final. Aurora looked at the sky. The moon was nearly at its peak. Her shoulder still tingled where the mark had glowed. Her skin still remembered his touch. But her heart wasn't sure if it could survive loving something that could break her in half. You should go, she said. Kael didn't move. Please, she added. He nodded once, slowly, and without another word, he disappeared back into the forest. The moonlight followed her all the way home. Kael returned the next night like he hadn't left. No announcement, no grand entrance, just a sudden shift in the air, while Aurora wiped down tables at the end of her shift, the same way the wind changes before a storm. She turned, and he was there, standing in the doorway, not asking permission. Her hands froze mid-wipe, their eyes locked. I'm not here to argue, he said. Then what? She asked, tossing the rag into the bucket with more force than necessary. Here to deliver more cryptic riddles and ancient laws? His mouth twitched, almost amused. No, I'm here to teach you how to stay alive. She didn't answer, not with words, but she grabbed her jacket from behind the counter and followed him out into the night. The training ground wasn't formal, just a clearing a short walk from the diner, somewhere between the town's edge and the deeper woods where the trees got thicker and the air felt older. It smelled of damp moss and smoke. She didn't ask how he found it. He moved through the woods like he'd built them. Start with your stance, he said. You're light on your feet. That's good. But your center of gravity's off. You'll go down the second something charges. Aurora folded her arms. I thought wolves fought with claws, not karate. He stepped closer, closing the space between them. And you think claws are the only thing you need to fear? He moved behind her, and she felt the heat of him before he touched her. His hands were firm but not invasive as he adjusted her shoulders, angled her stance. Her skin hummed like a live wire. She tried not to lean into it, but it was like trying not to breathe. You're quick, he said, stepping back. But you're not ready. Then teach me. He did, for hours. He showed her how to duck under a blow, how to twist out of a grip, how to aim for soft targets. His movements were precise, fluid, almost too fast to track. But what she lacked in grace, she made up for in stubbornness. When she fell, she got up. When he knocked her off balance, she reset. He didn't hold back, and neither did she. Sweat clung to her neck. Her arms ached, her chest burned, but she kept going. They circled each other in the dark, breath steaming between them, hearts thudding in sync. The moon, nearly full, hung heavy above the clearing. He lunged again. She dodged, barely. His hand caught her wrist and twisted. She stumbled. He stepped in. They collided, her back hitting a tree, his body close, too close. Neither of them moved. Her chest rose and fell against his. His hand still gripped her wrist, but not tightly, just enough to remind her he was there. His other hand hovered near her waist, like he wanted to touch her, but hadn't given himself permission. His eyes searched hers. Dark, deep, caged heat. Aurora, he said low, like a warning and a prayer. She didn't pull away, didn't blink. Her fingers curled slightly around his shirt. His heartbeat pounded against her palm like a second pulse. He leaned in, just enough for her to feel his breath, and then he stopped, like something caught him mid-fall. He stepped back. I can't, he said, voice hoarse. The cold hit her like a slap. Why? She asked, her voice breaking around the word. He didn't meet her eyes. Because you're not mine yet. I didn't say no. You haven't said yes either. She stepped forward. You think I don't feel it? You think I haven't dreamed of you every night since this started? That's not the bond, he said, almost bitter. That's the pull. It's nature. It's instinct. But that's not enough. Not for this. Not for us. Then what is? She snapped. Choice, he said. Real choice. not one made in heat or fear. The wind rustled through the trees. The moment cracked. Whatever had bloomed between them, raw and almost alive, faded under the cold light of reason. He turned from her. She hated how empty her skin felt the moment he did. "The full moon is tomorrow," he said. "After that, the bond will become permanent, if we complete it. And if we don't, then the magic fades, but not without a cost." She swallowed. "What kind of cost?" Kael didn't answer right away. "You feel it already," he said finally. "The ache, the dreams, the way your body burns and doesn't know why. If we deny it too long, it breaks us. The wolves call it the unbinding. Most don't survive it." Her heart dropped. "But I'm not a wolf." "You're mine," he said quietly. "That makes you more." The silence stretched. She didn't know what to say, what to want. What she wanted was him, and she hated herself for how easy that truth came. He looked back over his shoulder. "Tomorrow, I'll come for your answer." Then he was gone. She stood alone in the clearing, body still humming from the nearness of him, breath still caught between what almost happened and what didn't. The moon above her pulsed, bright and waiting. It happened fast. Aurora had just finished closing the diner, her apron slung over one arm, her breath fogging in the crisp night air as she stepped into the quiet parking lot. Everything felt too still, not the usual hush of late hours, but a sharp silence that pressed in like a held breath. The kind of quiet that warns you something's already watching. She turned toward the tree line. No movement, no wolf, no Kael. She exhaled and dug through her bag for her keys. The second she turned her back, they came. A sharp sting to her neck, cold, metallic. Her fingers flew up instinctively, but the world was already spinning. Her knees buckled before she even heard the footfalls. Voices, low and urgent, circled her as her body collapsed to the pavement. She felt hands on her arms, lifting, dragging. The sky above blurred, smeared with stars and moonlight, tilting as if it too couldn't stand upright. Then darkness, thick and unforgiving, folded over her like a trap. She didn't remember the car, only flashes, the scent of pine and sweat, something tight across her wrists, the low rumble of an engine, the steady thrum of fear in her chest as her thoughts unraveled into nothing. When she woke, it was cold. She was lying on stone, rough, damp, and freezing beneath her cheek. Her arms were bound behind her back, her ankles too. The air smelled like mold and dirt, underground. She blinked slowly, her eyes adjusting to the low flicker of a torch in the corner of the room. It wasn't a room, it was a cell. Thick stone walls carved into the side of what looked like a cave. A barred door, no windows, just the sound of dripping water and her own breath echoing back at her. Then she heard them. Voices, low, gravelly, not close but not far. "She's awake," one of them said. Footsteps. A man appeared, his silhouette large and hunched just outside the bars. He looked human, mostly, but there was something off in the set of his shoulders, something sharp and unnatural in his gaze. "You're lucky we need you alive," he said. "The elders were clear. If the bond completes, we'll all pay for it." Aurora's voice scraped out of her throat. "Who are you?" He smiled, but it was a twisted thing. "We're the cure." He crouched, eyes leveling with hers through the bars. "Your kind was never meant to be part of this world. The Alpha Kings were warned. Humans weaken the blood. We're just cleaning up the mess." She stared at him, blood draining from her face. "You're trying to stop the bond," she said. "Not trying," he replied. "Succeeding. That moon rises tomorrow. And if you're not with him by then, it won't take." Aurora's breath caught. "So what? You kill me before then?" "Oh no," he said almost gently. "We don't need to kill you. We just need to make sure he can't find you." "He will." The man tilted his head. "Will he? He's strong, sure. but even kings bleed. He stood, turning to walk away. "You're bait," he added over his shoulder, "and if he comes for you, we'll gut him like any other wolf." She waited until his footsteps faded, then slumped against the wall, heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Kael would come. He had to. But the moon was almost full. If he didn't find her in time, she couldn't think about it, couldn't afford to. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time was strange in the dark. Her fingers worked blindly at the ropes behind her back, twisting, tugging. Her skin burned, wrists slick with blood by the time the first knot loosened. The second took longer. She bit down on a whimper and kept pulling. Pain meant nothing, not now. When her hands finally came free, she fought the dizziness and sat up. The door was locked, of course it was. But the torch in the wall, it was low enough to reach. She crossed the cell on shaking legs and yanked it from the sconce. The flame wavered, casting long shadows. She stepped back to the bars, searching, there. The hinges were old, rusted. She didn't hesitate. She slammed the torch into the metal once. Twice. Sparks flew. The third time, something cracked. The sound echoed too loud, but she didn't stop. A fourth, a fifth. The top hinge broke loose, but then, voices. Footsteps again. Closer this time. Fast. She turned, heart stuttering, and raised the torch. The first man reached the cell door just as she lunged forward. She struck the bars hard, the flame catching the sleeve of his coat. He yelped and stumbled back. She didn't wait. She drove the torch at the hinge again. The door gave. She shoved it open and ran. The cave opened into a narrow tunnel, barely wide enough for her shoulders. She didn't know where it led, only that it was a way. Her feet pounded the dirt, lungs burning, body screaming from cold and exhaustion. Behind her, the howls began. Not human, wolves, but they weren't his. They were hunting her. The tunnel opened suddenly into forest. Night air slapped her skin. Branches tore at her arms as she ran blindly, leaves crunching beneath her. She didn't stop. Couldn't. The moon rose higher through the trees, casting silver light on the path ahead. She pushed harder, heart cracking in her chest with every step. Then the forest shifted. A presence moved through the trees like wind. Fast, too fast. A shadow darted across the path, and she braced for impact. But arms caught her instead. Not claws, hands, strong, warm, familiar. Kael. He pulled her into him, breathing hard, his body shielding hers in an instant. "You're late," she whispered, trembling. His voice was a growl against her hair. "I almost wasn't." Behind them, the howls turned into snarls, then growls, then silence. Kael turned toward the trees, his eyes flashing silver. The bond between them pulsed, alive and hungry. She felt it like lightning under her skin, burning and anchoring her all at once. "You're safe," he said. "I swear it." But his voice was tight, like he knew what she didn't want to say. Tomorrow was the full moon. And they were almost out of time. The forest felt alive with breath that wasn't hers. Every tree seemed to lean in, the wind too sharp, too knowing. Aurora clung to Kael as he led her through the dark, his grip iron around her hand, his other arm coiled at his side like he was holding something back. Not a weapon, something worse. Himself. The moon above had turned blood red, smeared across the sky like a wound. She couldn't stop staring at it, couldn't ignore the pull it had on her body, like gravity had changed direction and she was falling up into something ancient and nameless. Her mark burned hot under her skin, as if the moon itself had reached down and pressed its hand between her shoulder blades. Kael didn't speak. Not until the trees split open into a ravine and he stopped so fast she nearly collided into him. "They're coming," he said. Aurora glanced behind them. Nothing, no sound, no light, just the black breath of the woods. "How do you know?" Kael's eyes were already shifting. It wasn't like before. Not a flicker, Not a hint. This time it happened all at once, like something inside him split open. His pupils dilated, swallowing the color until they glowed silver. His face didn't change much, but his presence did. Larger, wilder. His breath came in slower, deeper pulls. His fingers trembled slightly where they still held hers, but not from fear, from restraint. The bond flared between them, hot, relentless. The full moon had found them. "You need to stay back," he said, voice gravel thick. "Kael," his gaze pinned her. "You can't see what I become." But she didn't move. Behind them, the first growl sliced through the trees, then another. "Closer!" Kael stepped forward, placing himself between her and the dark, shoulders rolling like a beast loosening its limbs. She saw the shift happen, not like in stories where men collapsed into fur and bones and vanished into animals. His change was slower, more brutal. Veins pulsed along his neck, crawling across his skin like vines lit from within. His jaw cracked, bones groaned. His spine arched like it didn't belong to him anymore. Then he roared. The sound tore through the forest, louder than wind, louder than anything she'd ever heard. It shook something in her ribs, something primal and terrified and awed all at once. The trees bent, and the wolves came. They weren't like Kael. They were wrong, slimmer, eyes wild with zealotry. Half-shifted, their claws too long, teeth too sharp, faces twisted by something that looked like hate. Kael didn't wait. He lunged, and for a moment, Aurora couldn't see where the man ended and the monster began. It was chaos, claws and teeth, screams drowned beneath snarls. Kael moved like a storm, faster than sight, stronger than bone. He was beautiful and terrible, all shadow and light under the blood moon, a creature pulled from nightmare and prophecy. They tried to surround him. He broke their circle. One lunged for her. He snapped its spine mid-leap. The others hesitated. Just for a second, and that was all he needed. It wasn't a fight. It was a massacre. When it was over, the forest was quiet again. Too quiet. Kael stood in the center of the clearing, breathing hard, his chest rising and falling like he'd been running for days. Blood slicked his arms, not his own. Aurora stepped forward. He turned to her slowly. His eyes weren't silver anymore. They burned gold, and they were hungry. She didn't flinch. He moved toward her, slow and deliberate, the animal in him still too close to the surface. The heat between them pulsed. Her mark burned. The bond snapped taut like a rope between them. "You shouldn't be near me," he rasped. But she was already there. "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be," he said again, but this time it sounded like a plea. His hand reached out, hovered just over her cheek, not touching, shaking. "If I claim you now," he said, voice rough and broken, "there's no going back." Her breath caught. "And if you don't?" He closed his eyes. "Then I tear apart the world, trying not to want you." She reached for him. The moment her fingers touched his skin, the world changed. A spark shot through her palm and down her spine. Her knees buckled, but he caught her before she fell. Their bodies collided, and the bond lit up like fire beneath her skin. She felt him, not just his body, but everything. The fury he'd held back, the loneliness, the ancient ache he wore like armor, and under it, the want. He kissed her like it was the only language he remembered, like survival, like surrender. His mouth crushed hers, one hand tangled in her hair, the other anchored at her waist. Heat exploded between them. Her back hit the forest floor before she realized they were moving. His weight pressed into her without crushing. She opened under him, breathless and burning, and born again in the space between his hands. Then, just as quickly, he stopped. His forehead dropped to hers, panting, trembling. "No," he whispered, "not like this." She blinked, stunned. "Why?" "Because I want more than the moon's demand," he said. "I want you to choose me, fully. Not because your body burns or your mark glows, but because you see me, and you still want this." "I do," she whispered. "I already do." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. His were no longer glowing, just Kyle again, just the man. The blood moon hung high above them, still waiting, but the beast in him had quieted. And for the first time, Aurora didn't feel hunted. She felt chosen. They waited for them at the edge of the forest. Not the rogues this time, not fanatics hiding behind fangs and shadows. These were older, sharper, standing in a perfect crescent, cloaks billowing like smoke in the wind. The High Council of the Packs, the Alphas of Alphas. Their presence chilled the air more than the blood moon dawn that had begun to stain the sky pink. Kyle kept Aurora behind him, his body a wall of instinct and threat. She could see the way his muscles locked beneath his shirt, the way his fingers curled, already halfway to claws, but it wouldn't be enough this time, not when the threat came not from Fang, but Decree. The central figure stepped forward. An elder, face weathered like cracked stone, eyes like ice that had never thawed. He spoke without preamble, voice ringing like judgment through the clearing. "She must die!" No discussion, no mercy. Kyle stepped forward, voice a growl laced in fury. "She is my mate." "And that is your crime," the elder said. Aurora's heart hammered. She should have been terrified, and part of her was, but something else rose with it, hotter, deeper, louder. It wasn't fear. It was defiance. "She didn't choose this," Kyle said. "The bond came to her, just as it did to me. She is human. The bond is false, dangerous, unnatural. You know the law." "I know the law," Kyle said. "I also know when it is used to justify fear instead of justice." The other council members shifted, murmurs rising. The elder raised a hand, silencing them all. "You broke sacred code. If you complete the bond, the packs will fracture. You will tear down the balance our kind has kept for centuries. We cannot let that happen." Aurora stepped forward. Kyle tried to block her, but she placed a hand on his arm, gently moving past him. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said, voice clear and steady. "But I didn't run from it either. And if you're going to sentence me, then you'll hear who you're condemning." The elder narrowed his gaze. "Speak then. It will be your last breath." She didn't flinch. "My mother died when I was a baby. My father never spoke of her, but there were things, secrets, passed down without explanation. Dreams, symbols, my mark." The murmurs returned, louder now. Aurora pulled back her sleeve, revealing the faint silver pattern glowing beneath her skin. A spiral cradled by moon-shaped lines, like light branded into flesh. "You recognize it," she said. "Don't you?" Silence. Only the wind answered. "She was lunar-born," one of the council whispered. "That mark belongs to the moon-blooded line." "Extinct," another muttered. "Erased." Aurora took a breath and stepped further into the light. "I'm not just human," she said. "I'm blood of the Lunars, the ones you tried to forget. The ones you buried to protect your control." The elder's expression cracked, not with emotion but with memory. Ancient, uneasy. Kyle turned to her, stunned. "You're from the lunar line?" "I didn't know," she said. "Not fully, but it's in me. I feel it now." As if to answer, her mark flared, bright silver, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath her skin. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Trees shivered, birds scattered from the treetops in a sudden scream of wings. Power surged through her veins, hot and holy. The bond awakened again. But this time, it wasn't a tether between them. It was a current radiating outward from her skin, wrapping around Kyle, then spilling over the clearing like moonlight turned into force. One of the council members fell to their knees. "She carries the old power," he whispered. "The bond isn't corruption. It's prophecy." The elder's lips thinned. "You would rewrite fate based on a scar and a surge of untamed magic?" "It's not untamed," Aurora said, lifting her chin. "It's mine." He stepped forward, face cold with conviction. "Then prove it." Before Kyle could stop him, the elder raised a hand, and from the air, from the earth itself, he summoned a blade. It shimmered with moonsteel, sharp enough to cut between soul and body. The sentence made manifest. He lunged. Aurora didn't move, but the earth did. A pulse of silver light erupted from beneath her feet, a wave of energy so fierce it lifted leaves and rocks and sent the elder stumbling backward. The blade clattered to the ground, smoking. She stepped over it. "I'm not here to destroy your laws," she said, "but I won't be buried by them either." Her voice rang louder now, carried by something older than memory. Her eyes burned silver, not borrowed from Kyle, her own. "I am Luna-marked, I am chosen, and I will not die for your fear." Kyle stood behind her, watching as the council tried to decide whether to kneel or fight. It was the elder who chose first. He bowed his head, not low, but low enough. "She lives," he said, words heavy with reluctance. "But you have set a storm into motion, Kyle Draven. The blood moon will not forgive easily." Kyle's eyes locked with his. "Then let it come." The council vanished like smoke on wind, scattered into the trees, and just like that, the clearing fell silent. Aurora turned to Kyle. He looked at her like he'd never seen her before. "You could have been killed," he said. "I could have," she agreed. "But then I wouldn't be me." He smiled, barely. They stood in the clearing as the blood moon dipped below the trees, and for the first time since this began, Aurora didn't feel like she was surviving someone else's fate. She was stepping into her own. The moon hung high and clear above Silver Ridge, no longer blood-red but pale and glowing, as if it had been washed clean by the storm that passed through them all. The forest was quiet, too quiet. Even the wind held its breath. Kyle stood at the edge of the clearing, the same place where they first faced the council, where Aurora had stood between death and revelation. Now she stood opposite him, the silver mark on her shoulder glowing brighter than ever, pulsing like it had found its own rhythm, one that matched the wild thrum of her heart. She could feel the weight of every pair of eyes watching from the tree line. The packs had come. Not just Shadow Moon, but others. Those who had once sworn loyalty to the old ways, and those who came because something ancient inside them had stirred. Some came to witness a breaking of laws, others to see if prophecy would be fulfilled. But Aurora didn't look at them. She looked at Kyle. He had cleaned the blood from his skin, but not the tension from his frame. Not fear. Kyle didn't fear. But something deeper. Something that said this wasn't just a ceremony. This was war disguised in ritual. A challenge to fate. Still, he stepped forward. "This will bind us," he said, voice low and steady. "In every way. There will be no undoing it. Not by law, not by force. Once done, it cannot be hidden, and it cannot be denied." Aurora met his eyes, her chin lifting. "I don't want to hide." The ritual circle had already been carved into the earth, lines in the dirt dusted with ash and salt, surrounded by moonflowers gathered from the mountain's edge. They each stepped into it, barefoot. No weapons, no armor, just truth. Kyle took a blade from the ceremonial altar, thin, curved, forged from moon steel. Its edge shimmered with ancient light. He turned it toward himself first, slicing a shallow line across his palm. Blood welled and dripped into the center of the circle. Then he handed it to her. Aurora took it without flinching, drawing the blade across her own skin. The pain was sharp but quick. Her blood fell beside his, the two lines merging in the dirt. A hum rose in the air, low and electric. The moon responded. A shaft of light spilled down through the clearing, so pure it looked solid. It struck the center of the circle, igniting the merged blood with a soft silver flame. The forest rustled. The watching wolves growled, some low and reverent, others uneasy. Kael reached for her hand, the one still bleeding. She placed it in his, their fingers laced, skin to skin, blood to blood. "Say it," he whispered. Aurora took a breath that felt like her first and last all at once. "I claim you, Kael Draven, under the light of the moon," she said. "Not because I'm bound, but because I choose. I am not yours by fate. I am yours by will." The words weren't rehearsed. They came from somewhere deeper than memory, as if her soul remembered a language her mouth had never learned. Kael stepped closer. His hand came to rest over her heart. "I claim you, Aurora Vale," he said, "not because you are mine by prophecy, but because I would choose you in every life, even if the moon forgot you." The mark on her back flared. The bond snapped tight. Energy shot up through the circle, silver light flooding the space between them, wrapping their joined hands, racing through their skin. Aurora gasped as it surged through her bones, not pain but pressure, as if something dormant was being awakened and rewritten all at once. Kael fell to one knee, breath ragged, chest rising fast, and still they didn't let go. The moonlight poured over them, brighter than ever. Around them, wolves howled. Some fell to their knees, others fled. A few tried to cross into the circle. They were thrown back. This wasn't just a mating bond. It was something older, something forgotten. Aurora heard the words again. Luna born. She understood now. The line hadn't died. It had only hidden, waiting for the right blood, the right moment. Her body shivered. Her veins burned. Kael's eyes locked on hers, golden and wild, but clearer than ever. And then, quiet. Stillness fell over the clearing, the light dimmed, their hands, still joined, glowed faintly silver before the last of the magic settled back into their skin. It was done. Kael rose slowly, pulling her into his arms. He didn't kiss her, not yet, but his forehead pressed to hers, and his breath shook with something he couldn't say. From the edge of the forest, footsteps broke the silence. Mira, Kael's sister, stepped forward, flanked by pack leaders and warriors. She looked at Aurora, not with suspicion this time, but something closer to awe. "The bond held," Mira said. Kael nodded. "More than held." "She's not just your mate," Mira said softly. "She's the Luna." The word passed through the crowd like fire. Some bowed, others murmured. One or two turned and left. But the tide had turned. A new power had risen, not just a mate bond, but a bloodline long thought lost, a Luna reborn. Aurora didn't feel triumphant. She felt rooted, her feet in the earth, her hand in Kael's, her fate no longer a question mark on someone else's scroll, but a flame in her own palm. As the packs dispersed, some pledging loyalty, others retreating into the dark, Kael turned to her. "Everything will change now," he said. She nodded. "Let it." They stood together in the fading light of the moon. No longer just man and woman, alpha and mate, but something larger, not the end of a love story, the beginning of a reign.